Rachel, normally I get upset about how they go long, but that was really great. So, but let's let that be the only one this year. Uh, for the second time in about 14 months, we've raised the IQ of this crowd because we have two Ida Bell High School graduates, with Courtland being here. When I asked Courtland to come back, he kind of was a little hesitant. He said, I don't think those guys got me. And I go, yeah, I think they got you. They were stunned. And I said, when you started your story on the Dartmouth recruitment and your mother coming in from the high school cafeteria and telling Dartmouth there's no way in hell he's going to Dartmouth because I got to have him within a day's drive. And I think that put everyone on their heels a little bit. So we can't thank you enough for coming back on your busy schedule. He travels all over the United States and he does this for us. And I really appreciate it, Courtland. Come on.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you. I don't know, maybe that's an Ida Bell thing. Usually when I greet people, they say hello back. So we'll, unlike life, give you a second chance. Good afternoon. And you wonder why I didn't think they got me. It is true though. When you get invited, I was sharing with Marsha there before we started. I said, well, when you get invited back a second time, you don't always know why. Sometimes it's like, well, did I flop so bad that Chris is looking to like redeem himself? Was it like, oh man, we'll give him for sure a second chance. But I am always honored, and I consider it a privilege to have the attention, the eyes, the ears of those who are open-minded enough to listen and hear a different perspective. And so thank you for the invitation. I didn't do it the last time, and I'm not going to let the opportunity pass this time to acknowledge my president when I was at Oklahoma State, Dr. Halligan. It's really good to see you, really good to see you, and an honor to even have your attention. And Chris, I mean sincerely that for me, when a person puts their name on the line or gives a referral, they don't just do so for the person. They do so, and it's important, at least, if when they do so, they recognize that their name is on the line as well. And so for me, that is not taken lightly, and I am grateful to you for that opportunity. We are about at the top of the hour, and I recognize that many leave at that point. And so I want to jump right into this idea around being a resilient entrepreneur or a resilient person, and what we know to be true about that word. It can be one that's difficult to find songs that kind of describe. So what you did was marvelous and speaks to your capacity to be open and creative. And I frankly enjoyed that. The idea of resilience and really being a person who is resilient, it comes down to this, and this is what I have spent my life researching, because if you've not been to Ida Bell, Oklahoma, if you did a Google Earth on that small town in southeast Oklahoma, there are these railroad tracks that separate the east side from the west side. And at least for me growing up, it felt like all of the good things that were happening on the opposite side of the tracks from where I lived. When things came to town, like the McDonald's and the Walmart and school and the golf course, the good stuff, it seemed, was on the opposite side of the tracks. I lived on the west side, and the department store, the grocery store, anything that my mom had to go do that seemed to be positive was on the opposite side of the tracks. And so it felt like for me growing up that there were the haves and the have-nots. And for whatever reason, we were in the have-not line. What I've spent my life doing is trying to figure out what's necessary to change lines. Now, I recognize the company and the audience that I am in, but I will say that there was a part of me that at one time in my life believed that it was all of the white people who got to have a good life, and it was the Black people who had to get a bad life. That's what I believe. You don't have to get all squirrely and uncomfortable in your chairs because I say that. I'm speaking to you from the perspective that I grew up in, because that's what it looked like. That was the lens through which I saw the world. There are the haves and the have-nots, and for whatever reason, we're in the have-not line, and I wanted to figure out, how do you change lines? When I would ask family, when I would ask friends, when I would ask the people at my church, you know Roy White, right? You probably played football at least around that time. His dad was the pastor of the church that I went to, so he was a person that I would ask, and it was like no one seemed to know. And that was frustrating for me as a kid, because I was like, can you not see that there seems to be this other life and other world that is being lived by people, and it's as though you all don't even care to know how to do it. And so that became pretty frustrating. Sometimes my mom would, get me to calm down just a bit and say, well, just be grateful. Just be thankful for where you are. There are people who have it worse off than you. All you need is love. Yeah. Can we just agree that nothing replaces money in the places where money is required? Is that a fair statement? Right. Nothing replaces money in the places where money is. If you don't believe that, send your mortgage company a love letter, right, instead of a form of payment, right? If you don't believe that. And so I wanted to be able to change lines. And in my study of that and in my research around that, the overarching thing that I believe that people who achieve, what separates people who achieve from people who don't, is that people who achieve emphatically answer the question, yes, to, can the future be better than today? And do I have the capacity to make it so? Those who are the highest achieving are those who seem to answer that question most emphatically, yes. Can the future be better than today? And do I have the capacity to influence that? Those who don't believe that it can be any better don't strive to do anything different. What they see, the choices that they make, are consistent with staying where they are. Those who fight against change and transformation are often those who are the ones most benefiting from things staying the same. It was, when the electric light was looking to, for mass appeal to, citizens of the country at the time, not everybody was excited about that. Not everyone was on board with the idea of electricity and electric light. Why not? Because those who had the market covered on kerosene knew that if people didn't need kerosene, then they lose, right, their income. So sometimes you want to be careful and be mindful of who's most against change, who is most against the transformation, because oftentimes those most against change are those who are benefiting most greatly from things staying status quo or remaining where they are. Imagine that I have a basketball in one hand and I have a drinking glass in the other. And this floor is not covered with carpet. Imagine that it's concrete. I've got a basketball in one hand, I have a drinking glass in the other, and I drop both. The basketball bounces and the glass shatters. How come? Now the sophomoric answer is, well, duh, because one's a basketball and the other's a drinking glass. But Dr. Halligan, we know to go a little bit deeper than that. The basketball bounces, the glass shatters. How come? Well, it's because of the materials from which it is made. The basketball is made of materials that allow it to be elastic, where the glass is made of materials that were pressured at about 1700 degrees, and so it's stressed out already. And so when met against the resistance, the drinking glass shatters because of the stress that it was already under, and the basketball bounces back up because of the elasticity of the materials from which it is made. If we apply that to human beings, if we apply that to business owners and influential people in communities, those who bounce back from adversity and challenge are those who recognize and remember that they are equipped with things that make them elastic, while others under pressure and stress seem to fall apart. What I have come to know is that there's not anything that we can do to avoid adversity and challenge, though there was once a time in my life growing up in West Idabel where I felt like that might be possible. How do I live a life where there is no adversity and challenge? The belief that I had were that the Chris Norrises of the world never had a tough time, never had anything difficult to deal with. That was naive on my part, yes, but that is the belief that was there. So be mindful of, like, when I say things like that, if you, oh, no, I'm speaking to you from the belief that was present in the environment that I grew up in. And if that's foreign to you, maybe spend some time in some other places than where you are most comfortable. That was my belief. But then I recognized, well, no, that's not possible, because if that were true, then everybody from those environments would be successful. And that's not the case. Environment alone does not dictate success. And so as I continue to maybe identify a way to not have adversity and challenge, right, it only brought more on. And so what we come to know now is that, well, adversity and challenge visits everybody. You can't get around that. And so if we're going to all be faced with it, then what are the things that you can do to bounce back from it faster than other people? When research has been done around what are the greatest predictors of success, it's hard to go with environment, though it does influence. It's not where you were born or raised or who your parents were or weren't. I used to use my story to justify not giving 100% effort. I had my reasons why not. And the more I would share that story, the more I would identify people who had it worse off than I did, and yet they had made it further. And so if it's true, then that not everyone, that you can't get around adversity, what are the things that enable a person to bounce back? And the research shows that the greatest predictor of life achievement and success is not related to IQ or intelligence quotient. There are those of you in this room who know people that you're smarter than them for sure, and yet they have more success than you have. Right? Anybody ever had this environment? He's like, man, how did you make it? It's like what am I missing? Right? And so it's not an intelligence quotient that determines it, though that, or some specialized knowledge, though that is sometimes suggested. And then there was delving into, well, maybe it's their emotional quotient, particularly their ability to, work a room and build rapport, and everybody knows them. We all know that individual who is very charismatic, but when you vet them out, you recognize there's not a lot of substance there, right? They're really good at connecting with people. Everybody knows them. They know everyone, but they don't have a very healthy relationship with results. They're not very accountable to making something happen. And so if it's not IQ and it's not EQ, what does it come down to? It, in fact, comes down to your resilience quotient. Your resilience quotient measures your ability to bounce back from challenge and adversity. And the faster you're able to bounce back, then the greater the competitive advantage that you have. And so how then, in the time that I have remaining, there are several, but one in particular tool for raising your resilience quotient. If you see it, let's say that you have a resilience score, and it's on a scale, or from 1 to 100. 1 being not very resilient at all, depression, you blame yourself for everything, anything that comes your way, you see it as your fault, you take things personal. A challenge in one area affects all the areas, and so you allow it to become very pervasive and rather than localized. And you see challenge and adversity as something that's going to be there all the time. It's always this way. It's never going to be any different. And so there's some permanence there. Okay, so what I just went through is your explanatory style. Okay, your explanatory style can be viewed through 3 P's. Highly resilient people don't take things personally. They recognize that adversity and challenge visits everybody. And so when it's their turn, they don't look at it as, oh, what is it about me such that I've had this bad situation come upon me? They see it as, you know what? Everybody gets it. Today, this week, this year is my turn. They don't take it personal. whereas those with low resilience scores tend to. Then there are those, the second P is permanence, or excuse me, the second P is pervasiveness. Pervasiveness is one's ability to localize challenge and adversity. They keep it specific to the area that where it is. So imagine a person has a flat tire on their way to work, on a Tuesday morning, and that flat tire now represents for them that my day is ruined. The whole day is done, right? And so if you really look at your life, you may find that it's not that you had a bad day. You had a bad 15 minutes that you ruminated on for 24 hours. Does that make sense? Okay. And so those who are resilient, they don't allow it to be pervasive. They don't allow a bad day at work to affect how they speak to their children. They don't allow a 1-hour meeting affect how they are in their significant relationships. They allow it to be, they are insistent that it be localized. They don't allow it to spread. And then the third P is permanence. Highly resilient people see challenge and adversity as just a bump in the road. It's just a hurdle that we'll get through. We'll be back to normal pretty quickly. Whereas those who are lower on the resilience scale, they see adversity and challenge as, it's permanent. It's going to always be like this. They cannot see the future being any different than how today is. And so that leads to forms of depression, self-sabotage, imposter syndrome, and so forth. I like to golf. I used to say I'm an avid golfer. I really enjoy golfing. And so my buddies and I, we do 4 majors a year. And they're usually, well, we don't go all the way to St. Andrews, but you get the idea. For us, we will play for $1 like the pros play for millions. But I mean, there's nothing I despise more than these are not happy bucks that I pull out, right? Like if I have to go into my pocket and hand Mose or Timmy one of my dollars, it is a thing. Anyway, so the last major of the year is coming up at the end of September, and I've won one this year. And my buddy and I, we have a bet on the winner of the most majors for the year pays for the other. So the loser between him and I, the loser pays for the round at Karsten Creek. Yeah, it goes from $1 to, I like that they call it a public course. Okay. Anyway, so he asked, so we're coming down to the last major. He has one, I have one. And he asked me this question last week. He says, well, Courtland, you don't play very well at this golf course that we're going to for the last major. So, how you feeling? We got a big bet on the line. How you feeling? And without any hesitation, I said to him, if I did not believe that what can be, it can be different or better than what has been, then I wouldn't have gotten as far as I have in my life. Right. So why go practice? Why go to the driving range? If I didn't believe that what can happen tomorrow is better than what's happened before, then what would be the point? And I would implore you to consider that for yourselves. And what is the attitude with which you put in your work? So the tool for you to use to increase or raise your resiliency is not mine. Martin Seligman, a professor at the University of Pennsylvania. And what is required in order for you to practice with this tool is to remember the first 5 letters of the alphabet. Now I'm not going to say that. We can handle that. Okay. I was going to make a joke about another school, and I don't know who all's here. So that's it. First 5 letters of the alphabet is all you got to remember, right? And you can raise your resiliency, meaning be able to bounce back faster from challenge and adversity. A, B, C, D, and E. A is for the adversity. So what's the thing that has happened? That requires a willingness on your part to be present to what's occurring. And so another way to look at that is what's the challenge or the adversity that's occurred? B is what's the belief that it triggers? Now, when I have more than 20 minutes, we'll go more deeply into that. How do you identify the limiting belief that dictates how you behave and the decisions that you make? But when the adversity or challenge happens, it triggers a belief within you. So you got to identify what's the belief that was triggered, and then see what's the consequence if you continue thinking that way. D is for dissuasion. And then E is for the new energy or enthusiasm that you feel. I gave the golf example a moment ago because it does fit how the A, B, C, D, and E can be used in a very simple way. In the major that I won, yes, I like saying that, with my buddies. On the ninth hole, a hole that I just, anyway, I hit the ball out of bounds. And what upset me about that was I took an iron off the tee because I was looking to play careful and smart, and I still pulled it out of bounds, and that really upset me. And so I'm thinking, all right, I'm in the lead. Again, I'm in the lead by 2 shots. It's a 2-day tournament. I'm in the lead, and then I pull an iron out of bounds. Courtland, you idiot. And then I thought about how to bounce back, how to be more resilient. And I thought about the A, B, C, D, and E. What's the adversity? I just hit a ball out of bounds with an iron. What's the belief that it triggered? For me, it triggered a belief of you don't perform well under pressure. It triggered a belief of every time you have it right there in your grasp, you find a way to sabotage it. It triggered a belief of, well, you know what, you probably play too much golf. You need to be working more. There are those who would have that opinion. And so all of these beliefs were ignited within me. I'm not good enough. I'm not deserving. I'm not worthy. That's the belief. Now, see the consequence. I'm on hole 9. If I continue thinking this way, how does it end up? It's just happened, but I'm still in the lead. The consequences of me continuing to believe this about myself will be that I will continue to play worse, because golf is a game that doesn't seem to care about how mad I get. So I'll continue to play worse. I'll lose the lead. And then our group chat will be making, incredible jokes about me, blowing the lead. What I saw the vision of the consequences of me holding on to this belief. D is for dissuasion. Dissuasion is where you look at the belief and you remind yourself of times when that was not the case. You have to get your mind to reset, reground, and recognize that dissuasion. Well, you're not terrible, because to be terrible and the worst golfer in the world like you're feeling right now would mean that you wouldn't have the lead in the first place. You just birdied a hole 2 holes ago. You're going to number 10, a hole that's actually drivable and that you like. And so what I had to do very quickly was remind myself or dissuade myself from that belief. So when the belief comes up, you'll need evidence in your life of when that was not true, when it did not happen or occur that way. And so from that dissuasion, I did find an E, new energy, excitement, and enthusiasm about how I would bounce back from it. You can do that too. We cannot avoid challenge and adversity. It visits everybody. What you can do is put yourself in position to bounce back faster than the rest. A simple way of doing that will require you to be present with what you're feeling, but identify the adversity, notice the belief that it triggers, identify the consequences if you keep thinking that way, then dissuade yourself by being reminded of a time when that did not happen, and notice the new energy and enthusiasm that you have as a result. My hope is that that this helps, and if it does, I look forward to an opportunity to be with you again. And if it was helpful to you, I would encourage you to not keep it a secret. Let some people know about it. Claim it as your own. It doesn't matter to me. I just want more people to know the truth about who they are. And the truth of who you are and that I am is that we're capable of more than we give ourselves credit for. And it does require, though, effort. Transformation requires that a price be paid. The lump of coal becoming the diamond doesn't happen without the pressure that is applied. The caterpillar becoming a butterfly doesn't happen until the butterfly displays the wing strength enough to break itself free from the cocoon. You don't get to have different, more, and better without a willingness to pay the price. That's not a Courtland rule. That's a life principle. And so those who aren't willing to pay, when you desire it, but you're unwilling to pay the price, that's called entitlement. But if you're willing to pay the price and you apply principles to it, then you have a reasonable expectation of having what it is that you want. Thank you very much for the opportunity. 1 o'clock. I recognize the hour is 1 o'clock. 1 or 2 questions, if there are any questions. The major that where I bounced, I did, and I birdied. I can't believe I didn't have that part of the story. Yeah, I birdied hole number 18 to win by 2. I did. Thank you for allowing me that opportunity to experience some new enthusiasm and energy. Yes, I saw him.
Do you have a book or anything out?
No.
Why not?
That's a great question. Your question was, do I have a book out? No. Will I have one by the first quarter of next year? Yes, I'm working on it. First quarter of next year, I'll have it out. Thank you. Anyone? Yeah.
Kind of give, no. Give us an idea of your schedule on speak. I mean, where all are you? How many weeks a year are you?
I travel
gone?
about 200 days a year. 200 days a year, and it's 1 week, at least 3 time zones, for sure. There was a time when that was really exciting, and still back home I had 28 first cousins growing up, 28 just on my mom's side, and my grandmother had 9 children, 7 girls, 2 boys. My uncles lived in other towns, but I say all of that to say that of the 28 of us, not one of us had their dad at home. Not one of the 28. So some of them still live there, and they hear of the travel, they hear of the schedule, and it's exciting and fun. But I tell you, hotel food and beds, but I'm so it's 200 days a year. It's ramping up again now, and I have to get back pretty quickly here. Today I'll do one. I am doing a little bit more virtual now. So I have a class for a group in Australia tonight, and but it'll be virtual. So, okay. Question?
Maybe this will be a good one to end on. Thank you very much for your talk. It was very positive.
Mm-hmm.
I'm of the opinion that a little bit of anger can fuel someone also. Especially those of us that work in the change-making arena, education, advocacy, politics. A little bit of anger can fuel you. How do you feel about that? Is it okay to be angry? And how do you take that anger and make it into something to create change?
Yes. Anger. Listen, I am.
Because I'm angry.
Oh, okay. Right. So here's, I believe that experiencing the emotions is not only positive, it's necessary. Whatever's going on the inside will find its way out. This idea of always being positive, always seeing the bright side, limits capacity to grow with speed. So there have been times where, and you could translate to your own life, where you get really angry, really pissed off about something, but you go out and you make something positive happen as a result. Mothers Against Drug Driving would be an example, or John Walsh in America's Most Wanted. Out of anger, I can create. So it's not the emotion itself that is either positive or negative. It's how you display it or channel it. And so I have been quite angry about the miseducation I had growing up from, I got advice on relationships from uncles who had been, traumatized. Didn't know that, right? I learned how to care for a family from people who didn't even do it. And so a lot of my work on myself has been an undoing and an unlearning as much as it has been a learning. So what I've come to know about emotions is have them, experience them, not suppress them, and have a way of channeling them that is effective. Okay, my youngest son, I'll close this. He was really upset about a situation that happened on campus. He called me, he was looking to blow off steam. I said, well, just make sure that whatever your form of retaliation, whatever you're thinking, just ensure that your form of retaliation doesn't have you now pay consequences that last longer than the event that occurred, right? Because in anger or resentment, I could do something that I now regret for the rest of my life because something or someone said something that literally lasted a few seconds. So how do you channel it in a way that outlasts or outlives the feeling or the emotion that you're experiencing would be, I'm not the guru. This is what I've come to know works for me. Fair enough? Thank you very much.